everybody, and welcome once again to the UnLearnT podcast. I am your host, Ruth Abigail, aka RA,
Hello, friends. It's me, Jaquita.
and this is the podcast that is helping you gain the courage to change your mind so that you can experience just a little bit more freedom. And we're going to keep talking
Yeah.
from our last episode. So we just want to treat you like pretend like this is a seamless conversation. Okay, it's
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we're not going to do much pausing. We're just going to keep on going. And if you haven't watched the last one, you feel free to do that because I think
Go
it's going to
back.
give you some good insight as to what we talked about, which was Quito. And speaking of what we talked about, so that the people kind of have an idea of what they're going to get in the first one if they have to listen to it. What do we go over?
All right. So we went over 4 points in the last one. First, fighting perception with action, making sure that you are leading from the front and leading with action over explanation. We talked about the difference between being a manager or a leader. Y'all gonna want to go back and get on that because we were spilling some hot tea, some good stuff on that one. We talked about the 3 C's, the 3 essential habits of leadership, which are connect, communicate, and create. Again, that one was fire as well. You want to go back and catch that one. And then we talked about leadership transitions, what it means to personally transition and what it means to transition an organization through leadership
Man.
transitions.
So look, if you haven't listened to that, go back and listen to it. I think it's going to really help to understand kind of the framing of where we're coming from this conversation, of what unlearning leadership has been for us in our 10 plus years of being in some sort of leadership position.
My Lord.
Yeah, that's been a while. It's been a
Man,
while.
middle adults, man, middle adults. When you start putting years to stuff, because you don't
Yeah,
say, I've been doing this work
yeah,
for 3 years.
no.
But when I
You
hit 10, I was like, look here. All right. I've been doing this for
Nobody
10 years.
says under double digits. Like it's not
Yeah,
impressive.
no,
Like it's like,
no,
oh, okay.
no, no,
Yeah.
no. You don't have anything to brag about till you got a double digit.
You ain't lying.
Listen.
You ain't lying. But we do. We got them. We got them doubles. So we're gonna keep going. There are three other principles of unlearning leadership that we have, and that we have kind of talked through and said, man, yeah, this is true for us. So I'm gonna let Quita take this first one. So what's the next one we want to talk about
All
unlearning?
right, y'all. We coming out the gate. All right.
Boom.
One thing that, like, as you are learning leadership, you realize that leadership is a living, breathing thing,
Mm.
right? Like, it is not a practice, it is a lifestyle.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not something that you pick up and put down. Like, leadership literally has to grow within you in order for you to be able to express it. So, in this idea of like living leadership, it's this idea of practicing what you preach, right? And it being more than just, I'm going to sit down and tell you what you need to do and tell you what you need to think, but literally going back and being accountable in your own life, in and out of the workplace. That's what people got to
Yeah.
get. Your leadership is not just when you are with other leaders. Your leadership has to be lived in and out of sight of other people, right?
Yeah.
And so just that level of accountability of making sure that the things that you are telling other people to do, you're also holding yourself accountable to. So Ruth Abigail, passing the buck. What you got to say about that?
Yeah, I think it's we have a lot of content out there. We got a lot of people who have a lot of knowledge and
Mm,
have a lot of things to say and that are good things. I think but the hardest thing about leadership is not learning it. There's a lot of learning that's going around. It's really living it out. That is the hard part.
my Lord, yes.
That's the hard part. Learning
Yeah.
it is easy. You can learn it through books, you learn it through podcasts, you learn it through
Mm,
TED Talks, you can learn it through, even other people's experiences. Like you can learn that stuff, but living it out is what takes the work, and that's what really creates the impact. Is how much you live it out, not
yeah,
learn about it. And what I think, like, especially in nowadays, we're so information heavy and information driven that
for
we
sure.
feel like we're doing something by learning. You're really not, to be honest with you. Learning is the first step towards making impact, but it's not the step that makes the impact. It's a step towards impact. Action makes impact. and you
Yeah.
have to live it out and actually apply this stuff. And the application of it is a life journey. It's not just once or twice, because like you were saying, Queen, I think the word that I was hearing when you were talking was integrity. It has to be real to you.
It has to
Like
be real,
it has to
man.
be real to you. And like,
Has
cuz
to be
just
authentic.
you're not going to be like, contrary to popular opinion, like you can't turn off you in it like once you leave the door. Like you turn this idea of like work with Abigail and home with Abigail. Truth of the matter is, I'm pretty much gonna be the same. Now I might, some things are gonna definitely like take more charge or put take the forefront in certain situations. But I'm pretty much gonna be the same way.
Yeah, I'm
So
carrying me with me.
yeah,
Like
everywhere you
I'm
go,
bringing me along. Like
yeah,
she's part of the leadership experience.
and whether I like it or not, like whether
Whether
you like
I
it or not.
like it or not.
Like it's just the facts. So you can't act like you gonna be one way. Case in point, right? I I would say my organizational skills. When I say organization, I mean like my desk. Okay, my
My lord.
desk at work is the same as the desk I'm looking at now. It
Mm.
has got stuff everywhere on it.
Yeah.
I am not the most organized, put together person physically.
Mm-mm.
I definitely have stuff everywhere and all this. If it's that way at home, it's gonna be that way at the job, right?
Yeah.
We work with young people, we work with teenagers. If you work with teenagers and you have a bathroom in the facility you're working in, you already know what I'm talking about. The way that
My
they leave
lord.
that bathroom at your facility is the way they leaving it at the house.
My lord.
It is what it is.
My
So you
lord.
have to understand, you taking you everywhere. So like
Mm.
if you are not a super organized person at home, don't expect to be that way at work. And if you have an issue with having empathy with the people in your house, you probably gonna have an issue having empathy with people at your job at some point. And so I think that living it out is a call to do that regularly in and outside of your job.
So I want to get nerdy for a second, if I can.
Mhm.
So there is a theory that I've been kind of studying for my PhD research, and it's called psychosocial development
Come on,
theory.
PhD. Come on, let's
Come
can
on,
we give
PhD.
can we give a little
Listen, come
snaps for the
on.
PhD?
You ain't got to give no
Hey,
snaps.
yeah,
Send
we
thoughts and
do.
prayers. All right. I don't need no snaps.
Snaps and
Send your
prayers,
thoughts
snaps and
and
prayers.
send your send your thoughts and prayers, okay? Because this PhD world is taking me through. But it was a theory that was developed around 1950, and by a man named Eric Erickson. Shout out to him. And it basically goes through, the theory suggests that every stage of our life, whether we are an infant, whether we are a toddler, whether we are a preteen, or a younger adult, middle adult, older adult, every stage has a specific challenge that a person is going through at their stage.
Interesting.
And whether they master that challenge or not determines whether or not they get the character trait that that challenge has to offer. Right.
Interesting.
So one of them, like for like the toddler stage, like let's say like 0 to 3, it is, the challenge is, will they learn how to trust people? Right. So
Yeah.
it's trust versus mistrust is the challenge. Right. And the virtues they get, if they learn to trust at that age, then they get the virtues of hope, they get the virtues of relationship building, right? And so like there are challenges and virtues associated with each stage, and the way that we navigate the stages of our growth determine what virtues we have available to us to be able to pass down to the people that we're leading, right? And so what it suggests is that the way that you grow and mature through your life will determine the way that you lead, right?
Yeah.
And if you are skipping steps, or
Yeah.
if you are not paying attention to your own development, and not and even, I hate to, we're not therapists, right? Like we try to make that very plain. We're not therapists. We're just two middle adults who've had some experiences, and we try to share. But if you don't go back and even do the work of the stages that you missed when you were younger,
That's
right?
good.
Like if you didn't get that trust versus mistrust stage, if you didn't go through that hope versus fear stage, right? Whatever challenges that were not appropriately handled when you were younger, you got to go back and get that stuff. Like I got to go back and get my hope. I got to go back and get my lack of my boldness, my courage, right? I got to go back and get my ability to communicate and my ability to have, to dream and and to have vision. You have to figure out what stage did I lose something
Mhm.
at that now my leadership is lacking at. Because when it comes to practicing what you preach, I guarantee you, if you go back and find what you missed, it will be easier to hold yourself accountable in your own leadership as you're continuing to help others grow and develop.
So this is really interesting. First of all, that is very interesting. And
Don't tell nobody. Don't tell too many people. That's gonna be my dissertation. So Yeah,
understood.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
was about to say,
Chillax.
can you
I'm just
like?
playing.
Okay, cool. No, no, no. I was gonna say, can you like, give us information on that? But we'll let you do your dissertation. Um, one of the things this I think that's really interesting, and I'm seeing what you're saying in this moment from the side of a parent who, when you are raising a child, like understanding that your job is not just to correct but to teach,
Mm-hmm.
because the teaching element is what is gonna a lot of what's gonna instill these things in it. Is like, children learn through experience, yes, but they also learn through instruction, and like in teaching you have to take time to do that. And so I think that I've been reflecting a lot. Of one of the things I'm grateful for of my parents is that they took time to teach stuff to us at all different development stages, and we had conversations, we asked questions. We absolutely had experiences where we succeeded in some ways, failed in others. All that is learning. But I've noticed that in my so my father's a pastor, and so I go to the church that he pastors. And I've noticed that some of the sermons that he preaches are things that we grew up hearing at the kitchen table.
Mm.
And I remember one instance where it was actually around leadership that he was sharing, and I don't remember the details, but the things that he was sharing were really resonating with me at that time. And I realized a lot of it had to do with emotional intelligence around leadership.
Yeah.
And I realized that in that moment I was kind of struggling with some things in leadership at that time. And I was so grateful for what it brought me to tears. It was so impactful what he was saying. And then I also thought about one of the reasons that I was so grateful is that it was a reminder for me. For a lot of people, that is the first time they'd ever heard it. So when you I
Mm.
was able to pull on something
That's good.
that I had as a younger person, like being taught by somebody else who's older. I was able to pull back on that and grab it when I needed it, versus being a person in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, hearing this for the first time and being able to even conceptualize it. Because I had it, I just forgotten about it. And but for a lot of people in that room, and I've worked with a lot of people who what he was saying, they didn't have. How much
Wow.
harder is it at that point when you are in those moments where you don't have what it takes to call on stuff that you need in your leadership space in order to really dive into these more difficult practices of leadership, but you never got what you needed growing
My
up, but you're
Lord.
hearing it in your
Yeah.
40s and 50s, and it's like,
Mm.
well, what are you supposed to do with that?
Listen, listen. Okay, so I want to run through the stages with them real
Yeah,
quick. So like and as you're listening to it, think, okay, wait, did I mislearn something at a stage in my life that I now need to be paying attention to? Because everything that you didn't get, you have the opportunity to go back and get what you need, right?
that's
All
good.
right, so at infancy, the challenge is trust versus mistrust. The virtue is hope. That's ages 0 to 1. Early childhood, ages 1 through 3. The challenge is
Mm,
autonomy versus shame or doubt. The virtue is will, having a will and a power and a purpose, right? Uh the play age, ages 3 to 6,
Mm.
it's initiative versus guilt. Like what are
Mm.
you learning? What are you carrying? Like where are you struggling at in these areas of your life? Hear that, right? The virtue that you get at that stage is purpose, right? School age, ages 7 to 11, it's industry versus inferiority.
Ooh.
That's ages 7 to 11. And then the virtue that you get at that stage is competence. And this is not saying that if you didn't learn, that you didn't navigate the challenge well, that you didn't get something, but it's, do I struggle with feeling incompetent? Okay,
Yeah.
let me go back and look at that conflict there, right? Adolescence, which is your teenage years, it's identity versus confusion. My
Ooh.
lord.
Oh Lord.
And the virtue learned there is fidelity. Early adulthood, we're talking 19 through 29 for our young adults. Intimacy versus isolation. The virtue learned there is
Mm.
love, right? Middle age, come on, middle adults, is generativity or stagnation? Are you going to keep producing new ideas,
Mm.
or are you going to remain complacent,
Mm.
right? The virtue learned there is care. And then our older adults, it's integrity versus despair. And the virtue learned there is wisdom.
Wow.
That's deep.
It is quite
So
deep.
again, that's psychosocial development theory. And go check that out and just do an inventory with yourself and say where are the challenges that I feel like maybe I need to go back and revisit and
Yeah.
see what can I learn differently about myself in this area so that I can be a better leader.
Are there like is there a link or something that we can link to in the description that where people can go and find this?
Yeah,
You got a
we
link?
can
You got a link?
link maybe an article. We
Yeah.
can link an article, and we can also, I mean, I just went to Google Images and they have all kind of charts and graphs. So we'll see if we can shoot out one of these charts or graphs.
I think that's good. I've never heard that before. I've never heard that
PhD,
before.
man.
It's
PhD.
really it's really interesting how I think those first ones, like those first things that you what do you call them? Hope. It's whatever you call it, the hope, autonomy, um
Like the challenges
cha-
are the virtues.
the virtues, yes, the
Hmm.
virtues that you gain, those virtues that we talk about, and all the, like, so many of them, I would say, what can you name the three that happen, the ones that happened before 19?
Okay, ones that happen before 19 for virtues are hope,
Hmm.
will,
Hmm.
purpose,
Hmm.
competence,
Hmm.
and fidelity.
Okay, those, sometimes using different words, are some of the most talked about topics across the board, whether it's in church, whether it's
Hmm.
in
Leadership
in
seminars,
leadership seminars, whether it's
training and
those
development.
things,
Yeah.
man, hope, autonomy, and like, yo, like those are like, we talk about this stuff all the time.
Hmm.
It's a scary thought to think that most people, no, I won't say most, but it's a scary thought to think that if you didn't get it when you were it, that the you didn't get it when you were younger, like that young, right? 1 to 4. Those are the traits that are being built in those stages. Like, it's not that, like you said, and that is hope. Like, there is hope in the fact that, like, if I didn't get it then, I can still get it. But I would have to imagine it's got to be harder. It's got to be
Yeah.
harder to get. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it's harder to get, but I think at some point we all have to face, like, like there were, because I think as you look back through that and you start thinking about what was happening in my life around that time,
Yeah.
like you can start, like there were things that we just didn't have the ability. It's not about what you got or didn't get. It's about what did I have to navigate at that stage, right? Because, like, for instance, the one that's autonomy versus shame or doubt, right? Like, how did I navigate in there? Because you picked up something during that stage, but did
Yeah.
you get the virtue of it?
Hmm.
Right. And sometimes we have to lay down. Maybe you picked up shame and doubt instead of mastering autonomy. Right. And so you have to, you go back and you say, okay, I need to lay down shame and doubt so that I can get the virtue of being able to master my own will.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm looking forward to your dissertation. I don't know that I'll read it, but I definitely am looking forward to you because I don't think I've ever
The
read a dissertation.
ridiculousness of that statement.
No, I don't know. I mean, dissertations are like,
I just feel like you shouldn't have a choice.
but how long are they? They're like
I
really long.
mean, it'll probably be probably around 200,
Yeah,
maybe.
I don't know. I don't know that I'll do that. But
She'll read it.
I will definitely I will definitely
Yeah,
I'll look at it.
I'm tying it to mentorship and the
Yeah.
necessity of mentorship. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um I definitely think that we I think we're going to need that. I think we're going to need that. I'm really interested to see where that goes. That's really interesting. I've never heard that before. I'm kind of intrigued.
It's
All
good
right,
stuff.
it's good stuff. All right. So y'all give me I'm gonna get into the next one. Give me 1 second. I had a 3:30 um phone call with somebody and I didn't realize we'd still be here at 3:30. So hold on 1 sec. Let me tell him give me 30 minutes. Um okay. Oh no, I didn't. Okay. All right. So yeah, that is good. That's good stuff. I'm looking forward to your research on that and to really understanding that more. All right. So we talked about like this idea of living out your leadership, and I think the way that Jaquita just gave us a framework for the different stages that we go through in our lives that can impact the way we lead. I think there's a another framework that I've noticed over the course of my own experience as to really how to even understand how you show up as a leader. Like what is it
Mm.
that you need to be paying attention to? Um and so again, like we had in the part one, we have 3 C's. All right, I'm about to give you 4 P's. Bet I'm about to give you 4 P's. All right.
Come on, 4 P's.
I'm about to give you 4 P's. All right. So these are just ways for you to reflect and determine how you show up as a leader based on these 4 P's. These are things I've done, and again, this is from my experience. I didn't. I don't have a study. I'm not doing a PhD, and I won't be. So,
Oh, child, please.
you know what I'm saying? So, but I think these are things that I've learned in my own experiences. Like these are important things about me that I've had to determine how do I show up. The first P is pattern. What patterns have been happening in your life? Reflect on your patterns, the trends of your life.
Mm,
Reflect on
mm-hmm.
your trends. Okay? The second one is your passion.
My
Reflect
Lord.
on that. Reflect on what gets you excited, what thrills you about life. That's going to inform how you are, sometimes how you show up as a leader.
Mm-hmm.
Reflect on your position in life. Where are you? What season of life are you in? What's the timing of your life? And then you want to reflect on the purpose of your life. What I'm talking about right now is the touch of who is your life touching? What is the
Mm.
impact of your life look like? And I think so you have the pattern of your life, the passion of your life, the position of your life, and the purpose of your life. I think that in this moment right now, that's going to shift. All those things might, except for the patterns. Patterns are patterns. That ain't going nowhere. But those other three things could shift
My
depending on where you are in
Lord.
your life.
Whew.
And so, what you want to do is reflect on where you are today with that stuff. And it's going to help you understand how you actually show up in your leadership. I'll give you an example, right? So, sometimes patterns can be good, sometimes they can inform you on what's on the negative sides, right, of how you
Mm-hmm.
show up. I was actually reflecting on this not too long ago, and Quita, you'll remember this, right?
Oh, my
And
Lord.
in our gospel choir in Furman, right,
Mm-hmm. Hey,
Brittany and
Fuge.
I were in leadership for 2 years. I was the president, she was the vice president. And our first year
Oh
was
Lord,
like a our first year,
it was a
we did
dream.
so much stuff that we were so excited about, right?
It was a dream.
It was amazing. Like
Yeah.
we started singing new music. We got a little band
Mhm.
together. We got
Yeah,
new people in, like
my
more
lord.
dedicated members. The choir
Yeah.
grew because we were like, okay, we're gonna do all this. We're gonna make all these changes because we had
Mm.
been in it for 2 years. It was like, we saw the things that we liked and we didn't like. We wanted to make some changes, and we did. And it attracted some kind of new blood to the community.
Yeah, it was great.
It was a great year. I
Yeah.
remember I got an email from one of our most dedicated members, and it was like such an affirming email for me personally. I was like, man, like he loves doing this, and I was so like honored to be able to be on the recipient end of that email. It's one of those emails you don't
Mhm.
forget about. It was very, very complimentary. um so that was year one. Year two was not that way.
My lord. Oh, Jesus.
Year two was tough, and year two was tough for a couple of reasons. But one of the things, and I like, just to talk about patterns, I
Mhm.
couldn't have told you this then, but I've seen this pattern in my leadership style since then. When it is, I get excited about new things. I'm not as, my energy is not where it is usually this year two. I'm like, I'm a new, I like new. And I get real
Mhm.
excited when the things are new. And I can
Yeah.
bring that kind of passionate energy when things are new. When we have to do a repeat and I have to have actual, like, structure and things in place, and I don't get to be as
Mhm.
excited and have to be more accountable, and accountability is put into the picture,
Oh,
I
yeah.
struggle more with that. And when I
Wow.
struggle more with that, it actually, the morale goes down when there's lower
Mm.
accountability, when you can't answer certain questions, when the excitement has done its job and now people are ready to grow and move
Yeah.
forward, and you're like, I don't have answers to these questions, or can't y'all can we just go with the flow? Like, no, ain't no going with the flow. Like, we're ready to, for some things to be kind of set in place, and order to be set and all this stuff, and I had to learn that. What I've noticed, and it's, I have learned how to do that. I'm better at it today than I was then, but I still learn that it is a struggle and something I have to watch out for. When I show up to
Mm.
a place the first time, I have the most influence. My influence sometimes can begin to, if I'm not careful, can begin to do that, can begin to go
Yeah.
down if I don't focus on the things that are needed usually in that second, third, fourth year, which is structure and order.
My
My strength
lord.
is not structure and order. My strength is building, is doing something from the ground up.
Hmm.
That's my strength. It's what I do. So I have to catch that pattern. So I have to know when I'm coming into something, understand that year two is going to be harder than year one for me. So I need to be prepared for that year one.
So this is interesting because I feel like this is one of the first times ever that I'm like, me and Ruth are the same. Like, like I am absolutely that way as well. Like, and when I look back over like the pattern of like my work history, like I've always been like at something where we were at the forefront of something. Like, like we're starting a new initiative or we're doing something really new. And I'm like, I'm your girl. I'm your girl to help you get from point A to point B. I'm your girl when an organization needs to make a complete change and we're shifting into something to make something better than what it was or to make something greater. Like I'm a girl to get you to get it started. I get it popping, you know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? But to stay and to like keep a thing running, to keep a
Yeah.
train a chugging, like the person who's responsible for like continuing to put the coal in the train. Nah, baby, I want to build the train.
Yep.
Like I do not want to be responsible for the day-to-day operation of this train. I want to get it up and get
Yep.
it moving. When I see it take its first voyage, I'm like, oh man, what a great job, team. Right. Y'all be blessed. Like, and so that's definitely something that I've had to grow through. what's been really interesting for me, I really like this kind of like reflective leadership, like inner work, like really thinking, because it really makes you take a pause and think about kind of like what your leadership is, and what people can expect from you as a
Yeah,
leader.
that's right.
And I think that you have to be able to go into a space and find a way to communicate who you are.
Mm.
I remember when I first started in higher ed, I remember saying all the time, I could never have a job where I'm not close to the students ever.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
always
yeah,
want to be walking hand in hand with the lives of the students. And I made that, like, that was my passion.
mm,
I positioned myself so that I was always just really in the lived in experiences of students. And it really kind of embodied my purpose and my impact in the ways that I showed up in spaces. When I got to the job that I have now, and I came in there like, all right, I got to get to know these Clemson students. I remember the first time I, like, because I moved from a smaller campus to a much larger campus. I remember the first time I walked around and saw students, I was like, there are 24,000 students on this campus, and I no longer feel the need to be close to all of them.
yeah,
Amen.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I love students. I love, you know, building stuff for them, but I no longer have to walk hand in hand with them. And I
right.
also realize I now have assistant directors who I need to be empowering and strengthening to do the work that I used to do. And I looked up one day, and the students were in everybody else's office except for mine.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
was like, I have like, literally in my office, there are like 10 seats. I have a couch, I have a table with chairs, I got other chairs. There are literally 10 chairs in my office. And I'd be like, dang, don't none of the, it'd be
dang,
like two
that's
students come see me
hilarious.
occasionally. They be like, hey, let me take a nap on your couch.
That's
And I'd be like,
hilarious.
sure, please use my couch. Like, and so while I'm still connected to the life of students, my pattern changed.
Yeah.
Like, I'm no longer, and when my pattern changed, my passions changed.
Mm.
I went from like being, it's my job to walk with students, to it's my job to equip and influence the next level, the next generation of leaders who are going to work with students, right? And then when my passion changed, my position changed. Okay, I'm now a director. I'm now a leader of
Yep.
leaders, right? Not a leader that impacts, but more so a leader that influences, right? And then that also changed the way that I see my purpose, right? It's no longer as student, it's still student centric, but in a very, very different way. And I
Yeah.
think that as a leader, you have to allow your journey
Yeah.
to birth something new, and you have to be able, in those times of reflection, to be okay with saying, I'm ready for my next journey. I'm
That's
going to take on the next iteration of my leadership, especially moving from that young adult to
yeah.
middle adult, because I tell you, at 35 something changed. At 35 I was like,
Yeah.
when the students started calling me auntie, I said, I'll allow it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
because my
Yeah.
position, I went from being a big sister to being an auntie. And
Yeah.
somebody told me, somebody was like, you just have a real mothering presence. And I said, I do. It's called
Yeah.
middle adult, because that's
Yeah.
when you start thinking about your parents, like, like, you, some of
Yeah.
y'all met your parents at middle adults. You came into the world, they
You
was
ain't
already in middle
lying.
adult
That's
stage. Or
that's
when you
that's
started
interesting.
getting a little bit older, and really, the parent child dynamic. Now mine wasn't, because I have very young parents, but like, you start learning your parents when they are middle adults. So
Yeah.
when you are a young adult and you are around middle adults, yeah, we get parental. We're like, hey baby, come on, let me tell you about life.
That's a great. That's a, you know what? That's a really good point. I haven't thought about that. I do think that part of that position part is very key. Like the timing, the timing of
Mm.
your life is so key. There's a lot of reasons for that, but it's something good to reflect on and pay attention to. We're in a situation where, and I tell my team all the time, like I spent most of, most of my time uh, pouring directly into teenagers. I now don't do
Mhm.
that. I have
Yeah.
younger people who are closer to their age, have
My
closer
lord.
experiences that can impact them in a much deeper way than I can. Now I have my moments and my opportunities to
Mhm.
do it, but it's not does not take up my day to day, and it shouldn't, because I'm not there. That's not where
Yeah.
the timing of my life is not there anymore. Um,
Yeah.
and it you have to know understand when that changes, and I think that there are seasons that make sense for certain activities, and there are seasons where it don't make sense for certain activities, and you can't be so tied to who you are right now that you don't allow yourself to evolve into a person who has influence in other ways later down the line. And
Yeah.
so that constant practice of reflection, of like, okay, let me kind of match my where I am in my life and answer these questions like, am I seeing a pattern? What's my current passion?
Mm.
Where am I positionally right now in life, and like what would I consider to be the purpose of my life right now, and match that where you really are, and see it doesn't match right now. And
Yeah.
some of the reason why you might be burned out, why you might be frustrated, man, because it don't match.
Yeah.
And maybe they're just some mismatches according to where you are. That's not me saying, I'm not saying go and quit your job because those things. I'm just saying there's a reflection point that's important
Yeah.
in your journey towards unlearning what being a leader is. Like, really get yourself in a place where you can be honest and self-aware, and then I would say just allow for that to start to drive your reality, start to drive kind of where you are able to go. Like,
Yeah.
don't put limits on yourself. Like, okay, this is kind of where I might need to be leaning more into.
I love it. I love
Yeah,
it. That's good.
yeah.
All right. So 4 P's, run them back for us.
Four P's. You got 4 P's to reflect on to determine how you might be showing up as a leader. Pattern of your life, which is the trends. Passion, which is the thrill of your life. The position of your life, which is the timing in your life. And the purpose of your life, and that is the touch of your life or the impact of your life.
Man, that's good, Rue. I love it. That's good
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, next one. All right, we're talking about your ability to see beyond and
Mm,
your ability to not only see, but to then communicate, right? So, we're
yeah.
talking about vision and planning, right? And so, I think it is incumbent. I've really been loving that word lately. It's a good middle
Incumbent.
adult word. It is
Incumbent.
incumbent upon us, okay, that we are a people of vision and that we're able to create and communicate vision, but you have to go in with the thought that vision moves people, but planning moves purpose,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
I think that you have to understand that, like, when you cast out a vision, right, you have to be able to cast out a vision that's big enough that somebody can see themselves in it and begin to take up residence in the vision that you've provided, right? You almost have to see whatever your vision is, you have to see it as like as a blueprint that somebody can say, "Oh, there go my house is over there in the blueprint," right? Like I see where I fit, right? And so
Yeah.
you have to be able to draw a vision that's wide enough and big enough that people can then find residence in what you're building, or what you're able to communicate will be built, right? But if your vision, I always tell people, if your vision only serves you, then
Yeah.
that's not vision, that's a wish,
Yeah. That's good.
right? Your vision has to be able to serve something that's bigger than you and that is inclusive of the people around you, that they can catch it and run with it,
Yeah.
right? And then when we start making plans, our plans have to be built around purpose, and that's what moves us forward into accomplishment, right? So vision moves people, right? But our planning helps our purpose to move toward accomplishment.
Yeah.
And I also think about, like, when I do dreams and goals sessions with young adults and young leaders, I always ask them, what does a dream look like without goals?
Mm.
right? Because everybody has a lot of goals, like we have these big dreams, but we don't set steps to those dreams, right? And I tell them that your dream is the body of the work you're hoping to accomplish, and your goals are the legs of it, right?
Yeah.
And in order to create movement, you have to set goals to the things that you're planning. So vision is the body of what you're hoping to see, and then when we start making
Mm.
plans, we start making movement.
That's good. I love that. I love that. Vision is your body, is the body. Goals are the legs. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
I like that. I think that's so good, and I think that these conversations, honestly, man, like be having me in such a mode. I'm like, man, I have made so many mistakes, and and
Child
and I
same.
have, and I'm grateful for them because they make me better. I mean, I can honestly say that now. I do not have any desire to go back in those seasons where I was making these mistakes, but I'm grateful for them now. And one of them is so vision. Vision is such a it's a rare gift to have vision. I think we
Mm-hmm.
have to acknowledge that and be real about that. All and every person in a leadership position is not going to have vision.
Actual and factual.
Every person in a leadership position is not going to have vision, but somebody in that leadership seat got to have. Somebody got to have vision,
Somebody got to see something.
right? Somebody got to see something, and that's what I want to see. That's the key word there. Vision is about sight, and
Mm-hmm.
so
Seeing beyond.
I have not and I didn't realize I don't know that I would have called myself a visionary when I first got into this role. I will say it. I will say I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I wouldn't have necessarily called myself that before because I just didn't see myself as have a personality of a visionary that I kind of
Mm.
put in a box that I wasn't in. But I would consider myself to be visionary now. I literally can see things. I mean, I see things, and it's not just like I can see it. There are
Mm-hmm.
other leaders who have vision for strategy that could have, and strategy is the plan that takes you there, right? And then there are other people have vision for tactics. Tactics are the tasks
Mm.
that happen within the strategy.
Nice.
Okay, so you have to have all three of those things having to work. You have to have somebody who has the whole picture. You have to have someone or something that's driving the strategy, driving the steps that get there, and then you have to have tactics that actually make those steps make sense.
That's
Now,
good.
some of those, some of that can live in one person. I'm not saying that it's three different people, but I am saying that don't assume that it's in one person. Don't assume that. Oftentimes, those strengths lie somewhere in it, and so again, going back to that reflective point, begin to really kind of understand where I might be in that, right? I have come to the point where I am a visionary and a strategic person. I can see a thing and understand the steps it's going to take to get there. I am less good at execution. And
Mm.
so
Mm-hmm.
when I communicate, now here's why I'm saying this. Oftentimes myself, and I'll use myself because maybe no other visionary has this problem. But when I communicate that vision, I in my mind it's already done. Okay? It's already done. It's like, "Oh, this is it. This is it. We got it. We're going to do it. This is what we're going to do. Boom, let's go do it." It's already done. And I have an expectation sometimes that the people who are listening to it are where I am when I tell them about it. But that's not true. So you have to remember when you're communicating a vision to somebody, you have been living with that picture for a long time. When you're communicating it, they are just now stepping into the picture that you've been living in. You cannot
Mm.
expect them to catch it as quickly. You can't expect them to be ready to execute on something that they've had for an hour that you've had for a year. My downfall sometimes as a leader is having that false expectation. And so when I communicate it, two of the things I think is important to recognize when you communicate the vision, you have to communicate it often. You have to communicate it often, and in different ways, right? Communicate it often in different ways. Make sure it's threaded through all your communication.
Mhm.
And then the second thing is you have to set realistic expectations for when the execution of certain parts of the strategy are.
That's good.
And your team, a lot of times, will help you with that.
Mhm.
Once you paint the picture, and I love what you said as far as like, let people like paint it big enough to where people can see themselves in it. Once people
Mhm.
see themselves in it, let them play the role they're designed to play.
Let them play the role,
Let
man.
them play
I
it.
think one of the things that I feel like I'm constantly teaching young leaders like to do is delegation.
Yeah.
Like because they feel really responsible for the results of their work. And so it is hard for them to release it. Whereas let me
Absolutely.
tell you something, middle adult, middle management, baby, take that up. We'll talk about it in our
But
one-on-one and
you
let
know
me
what?
know how it's going.
Can I say this though? I don't mean to cut you off, but I think this is important because I do think there's an element of why there's a responsibility because you're still kind of building up your reputation at that point. Like
Absolutely.
you want to be able to
Absolutely.
say I did a thing. Right.
Yeah, and I also think that they feel way more tied to the results of it. You
Yeah.
know, like and where I'm looking at, I'm like even if it doesn't work, it was still effective. Even if it didn't work out the way that you thought it was going to, but I've already lived through my season of being responsible for something that didn't go well.
Yeah.
You know, like I've already lived through my season and I've already gone through the emotional turmoil
Yeah.
of it, you know what I'm saying? And so so as I'm walking them through it, I'm teaching them again when we talked about I think when we talked about in the last episode that you manage processes but you lead people,
Yeah.
right? In the art of delegation, I'm teaching them how to be a leader and not just a manager
Yeah.
because like I said, I train all of my people for what they're going to do next. Like I'm training and you're going to have to know how to lead people, right? I know y'all are all really really good at managing your processes, right? But how are you at leading people? Are you able to cast a vision that's bigger than you? I need you to get in the practice of that. I need to invite you to my seat as much as I can. Right? Like as much as I can, I need to say, "Hey, come look at it from my viewpoint. I want you to be able to see it so that you know how to navigate it when you get here."
Yeah.
And so, I want them to be able to go on job interviews and be able to rock it
Yeah.
when it's time. Amen. When it's
When
time.
it's
When
time.
it's time.
Amen. Amen.
There's no
Amen.
rush.
Amen.
There's no rush.
Not at
There's
all.
no rush.
Not at
All
all.
right. I'm not trying to rush nobody through their process. But I think that it's important. It is important that we are giving people like a full breadth of experience. Especially when they're in those young leadership roles and not skipping any steps. Like I understand it's important for you to build programming that you feel is successful. But at some point you have to learn I can't do it by myself.
No. Oh,
Like it
100%.
doesn't work by myself.
And one of the things I used to tell when I was doing training for youth workers is the role, like once you have you as a I would ask them, I said, how many kids do you feel like you can impact at one time as a person? And most of the answer would be between like 10 and 15. I said, how many people do you have? How many kids do you have at your ministry? Usually 75, between 75 and 300, right? I said, okay, so what about the other kids? Like what's how are they being impacted if you can only handle 10 to 15? Or do you have
Mm,
more than that you need to, and so we would talk about the role in our world of volunteers. You volunteers are a way to multiply your impact because you can't impact more than the small group that you can. You
yeah.
don't have that kind of you don't have another brain, another set of arms and legs and lungs and a heart to go and do something. So you've got to what you have to do is be able to transfer that to another individual to basically multiply the impact that you have here so that your impact can be multiplied to this group even though your presence is right here. And
Mhm.
so that for what we do working with young people, it sometimes lives in volunteers, it can sometimes live in staff members, it can sometimes live in and parents, quite frankly, like,
Mhm.
because a
Yeah.
lot of times parents come to us to like, how, what do I need to do to get through to so and so, and it's like, hey, you can actually impact what you're learning by working with larger groups of students, by impacting parents who are going to have a different kind of level of impact and layer of impact than you can. And you're the point is, you want to pour what you are learning into someone else so they can go out and do what you can't do. And if you don't learn to do that, right, if you don't learn to delegate what it is that you've learned to other people, you will never, your impact will never grow, and you won't grow. Your influence won't grow. You are not big enough to have the impact that you have in your head by yourself. And so I think what you're saying is so true. We have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to give things away. And I think sometimes it can be scary. It's like, well, if I start giving stuff away, where's my significance? And you you have to start to see your significance in a different way. It's not just about um being the person that's directly connected to the impact thread leads back to someone. Let that someone be
Mhm.
you.
Yeah.
that
That's
that
good.
is that is the mark of a growing leader. And so, yeah, I think that is the understanding. I think the other thing that I wanted to say is that and I don't think you were saying this, but I did want to make this clarification. Everyone is not meant to be a visionary leader. And
Mm-mm.
so
Mm-mm.
I do think it's important that everybody kind of understands the different areas of leadership. But even in what you said you did with some folks that like, I want you to sit in my seat, I want you to see what I see. It gives them an opportunity to then say, okay, I see it from this perspective, and I'm understanding more of what I do. So what if sitting in your seat seeing what you see is, it gives confirmation to, this is how I can contribute to that.
Mhm.
So my contribution is, I'm gonna execute at a high level. Look,
Yeah.
I don't need to know what's going on a year from now. Tell me what we need to get done next week, and I
Yeah.
got you, right.
Yeah.
That is, to me, like, there's so much there's so much uh words there is so much good things, and that's not the word I'm looking for, but there are so many good things that can come out of seeing something from a perspective that you might never have naturally, so that you can
Yeah.
see where your natural perspective does fit into that picture.
Yeah. So I think, no, I absolutely agree with you. Everybody is not a visionary leader, but I do think that every leader, especially the higher that you get up that chain, you need to be able to facilitate vision,
Oh,
right? And so, and I think that we all do that in different ways, right? Like there are some leaders who can go retreat and come up with a vision and present it to a team. There are other leaders who are going to bring the team together and say, hey, let's all come together and create and cast vision. I want to run through, if we have a little bit of time, I want to
yeah,
run through these different type of leadership styles.
yeah,
And so, if you hear something that kind of like resonates with you, then that's a leadership style that maybe you can do a little bit more research into, because we're not trying to, like Ruth Abigail said, not trying to change your leadership style, right? But you got to find your style and then grow in who you are, right? And so this is all a part of self-awareness. So here are some different types of leadership styles. There are some people who are like kind of the laissez-faire leadership styles. That's the let them just kind of do, and you give more autonomy and authority to your team. And the leader is setting direction, but lets the team decide how we're going to get to the place that we all agree that we need to get to. There's transformational leadership, which I tend to align myself with. It's always focused on change and impact, and how we do that through innovation by realigning our organization's vision and goals, and really, really using our passion and our enthusiasm and our energy to help everyone to succeed, right? So there's transformational leadership. Autocratic leadership is a leadership style where we need to make a lot of quick decisions, and it needs to have clear direction. So there's one leader giving orders, right? And you might see that in some high stakes things, maybe like at a plant where everyone needs to be doing the same thing, and we don't need anybody doing anything off kilter, right? It might have a more autocratic leadership style. Democratic leadership, the leader may have the final say, but the team is a part of the decision making process, right? And this is all about just learning your leadership style. Bureaucratic, there's well defined processes and regulations that allow things to get done, but everybody is kind of working from a very stable and steady system. So you're really good at creating systems that allow people to work that organization. Transactional leadership is, I'm giving you a benefit because I'm hoping to get something good from you. All right. I'm giving to get, right? Whatever benefit I'm hoping to give you, I'm willing to pay the cost for that benefit. And then, of course, there's coaching where you are really taking more of a personal approach to developing the people that work with you. And then servant leadership is where leaders are always willing to serve rather than focusing on acquiring power and control.
That's
Right.
good,
So
man.
if one of those resonated with you, go study that and just dig deeper into your own leadership style.
I think it's important in hearing those two things. Number one, almost it's important to understand, and probably you're probably going to operate at some point in all of those. I think there's 10. Is there 10 of them?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9.
Nine. Okay, there's nine. All right. So in all nine of those, it's important to understand that how to operate in all nine, because for the second point, I mean, there's very few, every organization is essentially going to go through moments where all nine of those are going to be needed. Like, so
Mm-hmm.
you might resonate with one or two of them more deeply, but it doesn't mean ignore the others. Like, understand them, because you might have to implement some leadership management styles that are less comfortable for you because the moment calls for it. The autocratic one is a very good example. I'm not that is less I don't like giving orders to my team.
Mm-hmm.
But there are moments where it's like, we have to do it this
We
way.
got we got to fall in that
And we
spot.
we have to do it this way at this time, and I don't have time to explain why, but we have to do it,
Yeah.
right? Um excuse me. And then there are seasons where that is completely inappropriate. There are seasons where you're going to have new team members where the laissez-faire would not be appropriate for a new team member because they don't know enough to
Absolutely.
do things on
Teach
their
me,
own.
coach me,
You need they so
help me. Yeah.
you need to be more more probably autocratic in a kind way, right? Not a dictator, but you're autocratic and like, okay, this I'm going to tell you what to do because you're new.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a team member who's been there for 10 years in their role, you need to let them set direction and let it go, right? So
Yeah.
there are moments I can think, even in the last 4 years of me being in the role I'm in now, I could probably list. I mean, I've probably had to do all of them, quite frankly. The only one
Yeah.
that I wouldn't say were there is the bureaucratic, just because I've said earlier, um, we structure and order and process are things we are still building because we're still new.
Mm-hmm.
But
Also, I think, just kind of like with personality styles, like it's important to understand that like the other people that you're leading alongside, the other leaders that are in your same space may be leading from a different style or from a different mindset.
right,
And you need to know when to lean into
that's
each
good.
other's strengths
Correct.
and not make somebody feel like they're less of a leader because they don't
Absolutely.
naturally have the style that you have.
Absolutely.
Right, we
Absolutely.
need to be able to like game recognize game. Like I see what you're doing and it's not what I do, but I respect it enough that when I need you, I'm calling you. And I'm not trying to step over you because you don't do it like I do,
Yeah.
but I'm leading alongside you. And as we are developing our leaders, figuring out the people that you're leading, figure out which style comes most naturally to them, like which one are they kind of leaning into and which one do they kind of maybe need a little push in,
Yeah.
right? Which one do, like, maybe they're not good at confrontation and they need to lean in the ability to give orders and to expect that their orders are followed,
Yeah.
right? Especially, in programming, we can sometimes the stuff we do, it is very important that people are doing what we tell them to do,
Yeah.
right? And you have to be able to communicate in a way that's like, hey, I said it and that's what we're going to do,
Yeah.
right? And so, being able to kind of recognize where people are and where you're trying to get them to,
Yeah.
super important.
No, that's good. It might be a good idea, Quita, like in a different episode to like kind of really unpack all those and
Yeah.
how they can relate to learning, like kind of your learning your own leadership style, but also understanding the leadership styles of organizations you might be in based on the season that they're in.
Mm.
Like
Yeah, that's
I
like
saw,
organization.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
organization theory
cycles,
is different. Yeah,
right?
but yeah, we can
You're gonna
dig
have
we can we
cycles.
can dig deep.
No, that's good because all you. I think that growing up as a young, growing into your leadership and kind of being a younger person in this professional culture right today, again, the mindset of if it's not the way I want it to be right now, I can't be here. I think that mindset has to be matured because there's a reality to cycles of organizations. And
Mhm.
so I think there's a conversation to be had around the cycle of an organization, the way that leaders show up in those cycles, and how you
Mm.
in your growing leadership can contribute at each level,
That's good.
without feeling like I can't, like without feeling trapped in a certain cycle,
I
because
love it.
every season it's going to shift at some point. Yeah, so it might be interesting to talk about that. I don't know. Y'all tell
Tune
us.
in for the next episode
Yeah,
when I don't know. I know that's what we're gonna do next, but tune in because we're definitely gonna hit that.
yeah. We'll hit that. We'll hit that. I think. Wait, are we done? Is that it?
Yeah,
We're done. Hey, we did it. Look at us.
we
Part
did
one and part two.
it.
Woo!
Ooh,
Hey,
that leadership talk, let me tell you, girl, let me tell you.
that was
It's
good.
so much, I mean, it's so much more that we could unpack. Like, we could talk about leadership for days, like
Yeah,
learning how to lead people and to manage processes.
yeah,
There are endless books, there are endless resources, there are endless topics of discussions about how to be a good leader.
yeah.
Hey, who's your favorite leadership guru?
Um, woo. I'm a fan of Simon Sinek. I'm a fan of Brene Brown. I'm a fan of um Cal Newport. I'm a fan of these people. These are people that come to mind right now.
I like it. I gotta add old school, but he's tried and tested. John Maxwell.
Oh God,
Man,
yeah.
John
Oh
Maxwell will
yes.
give you 21 characteristics of a
No,
leader,
he's phenomenal. Yeah.
15 characteristics of highly effective, like
Yes.
John Maxwell is the guy. I
Yeah, he
like
is.
John Maxwell. I really have read a lot of books about just learning more about kind of like who you are. I like those type of books as well. Like any personality strengths based
Yeah.
assessment, I'm into those. But listen, never stop learning. Also, this might not sound as relevant, but Miles Monroe, like top tier,
Top tier.
top tier, top tier, and especially if you are kingdom minded, and faith and leadership go hand in hand for you. Miles Monroe has a lot of really, really great leadership resources.
I would say Darius Daniels is also a great resource for leadership.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
like he's got some
Top
excellent
tier.
content. Top tier when it comes to
Top
top
tier.
tier. So yeah, there's all this stuff out there. I will say, I think this is true. There's a lot of content, and there's also a need to find real people to help process through that content. And
Mm-hmm.
so, we're continuing to give content, but I think once you get it, it's like, okay, how do I really process through this for myself, and how do I make it real in my life? Because
Yeah.
listening to podcasts and reading books won't make it real. How do you make it real?
No,
And there are ways to do that that I think live in mentors and examples of individuals around you that you can watch,
for
ask
sure.
questions to, that you can't do through. through a podcast or a book or a video or something like that. So just keep
That's
that in
good.
mind. Just keep that in mind. All right.
Purpose partners. Find you purpose partners.
Find your purpose partners. Yes, do that. Do that. All right, y'all. Remember, like, share, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know that you're listening.
Listen.
Let us know what you've unlearned from this series. Hopefully, it is something valuable.
Yeah. We love hearing from y'all. So for real, hit the DMs, hit the messages, comment under the videos. Promise we'll engage. We really enjoy when you guys are interacting with us.
So let's keep unlearning together so that we can experience more freedom. And we will see y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.